Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Power to Live Your Vision podcast. I am one half of your hosting team. I am Dr. Jessie Bowen, and I'm here with my partner in success with Coach Nathan Ray. Hello, sir. How you doing?
Happy, radiant, free, shining bright like diamonds. Happy to be back to get after it. Great to see you. How about you, sir?
Better and better, trying to make the world a better place.
And you're doing it. We're doing it. Hey, this is what week is this now? What, 14?
I guess
I lost count.
we'll call it 14 anyway.
Yeah, it's been a good run, and been getting lots of great feedback. Thanks to Elite Publications for sponsoring us, and Roku. We're on Roku channel and Spotify, and I had people reach out and said they saw us on YouTube and Facebook. So the word is spreading. It's been 4 months since we made the move. That after a conversation at Christmas, and then now here we are, 14, 15 weeks, whatever it is, and we're having an impact in a good way. So hey, it's definitely making the world a better place already.
Well, that's why we start this podcast. And everyone, again, the podcast is sponsored by Elite Publications. Everyone has a story. You just have to get it out. So if you're interested in publishing a book or you want some advice, just go to www.elitepublications.org and schedule a free author success coaching session. In fact, as Coach Ray was just saying a few moments ago, we started the podcast. We were at a Christmas gathering party, and we started talking. Well, let's just do it. And now we're talking about doing a book. And next week, the book is going to be up for sale, so you can go ahead and pre-order the book, and you can guess what the name of the book is. It's called The Power to Live Your Vision. That is the name of the book. So, whatever you're doing, you can write a book, tell a story. It's a powerful way to get a message out. So, as we kick off today, we got a really great topic. And the topic today is the power of self-image, becoming who you see. And I really think this is a great topic. And, our podcast is about personal empowerment. We're both coaches, we're life coaches, we're empowerment coaches, visualization, sports hypnosis coach. So there's a lot of things that we do. We help people in a lot of different ways. And we're just hoping that, we can share something that's empowering to you. If you want to have a special topic you'd like for us to talk about, then you can email us at info@elitepublications.org, or you can message me on Facebook or Coach Ray on Facebook, and we'll actually discuss a topic that you are really interested in that will be able to help you. So I'm going to kick it off to you, sir. So, it's a pretty powerful topic, the power of self-image, becoming who you see. Now that's pretty deep. And that's the question, how do you see yourself? Because to be able to solve your problems, whether it be relationship, whether it be financial, whether it be sports performance, business, no matter whatever it is, you really have to start with you. Because when you start with you, that's where it all begins.
Yeah, well, yes, sir. The idea of what we see was very interesting. If you remember, those of you who are younger, you may need to go back and watch it. But in the movie The Matrix, there was a scene in there where he's explaining what the Matrix is, and he's sharing with Neo, hey, you're what you see yourself as when you look in the mirror is just what you have in your mind, and that's how it comes out. And so that idea of self-image and the power of self-image, because he's saying that's not your reality, what you look like, but that's what you have in your mind that you look like, right? And so I said, wow, that's very interesting thought. And when we go back to all the positive self.
Okay, I think one of us is frozen here. I'm not sure. Is it Nathan or is it me? Okay. Okay. So I guess Nathan has dropped off here. He should be coming back on here in just a moment. Okay. Well, everyone, we're having a little technical difficulty today. And so again, I'm waiting for Nathan to come back on. And so hang on here just for a little bit. And let me see, I'm going to reach out and give him a buzz and see can I get up with him to figure out, do I need to continue on the podcast right by myself? Are you back?
The adventures of the podcast. Hey, we're back. I can't. Let me see. I can't hear you. Hold on. I think I can hear you now. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right.
For it. I blew it up.
Well, the great part about technology is when it's working, and when it's not in there. Okay, so let's go. Let's continue on. So when we're thinking about the self-image of who we are and what we're doing and our success, we want to think about that the self-image is like our blueprint. We don't outperform it. We live it out. Mm-hmm. So when you think you're great, you are great. And when you think you're not great. So, in fact, I found myself walking around the house, I guess it might have been yesterday, and I was working on something and I was tired. I was getting a little frustrated, and I was saying to myself, you're great. There's no one else just like you. There never has been, there never will be. Because, you get things done. It's that black belt mentality that you get things done. So that's one of the things that you have to look at your self-image. I don't care whatever I tell you, unless you believe it, then it really doesn't matter. You can
That's
say it
right.
all day long, but you really have to believe that.
Right. Well, I think that's a great key, Hanchi. I mean, you jump right back in, all the way in. That's great. That idea that we are not using our words to our advantage, making sure that we are speaking the right words to ourselves first. And because you can tell everyone else anything you want to, but if you haven't convinced yourself, then you're going to have some challenges. And I think one of the great keys of alignment for everyone who's watching, the question that I always default to is, okay, that sounds awesome, but how do you do that? I know one way is constant space repetition and speaking to the truth and not the facts. The fact may be that you're what things appear to be or what they appear to be right now. But the truth of you is what you said, which is something that is absolutely fact. And I shared it with a class last week, which is I know you're great. I know you're unique. I know there's no one greater than you because you're the only you that there will ever be. That uniqueness and speaking to the truth of that versus the facts of current circumstances. I think that's another key. What would you say to that in terms of
Well,
practical application?
well, that's where visualization comes in, because we got to sort of break it down and put those key words there. So, we got mindset, which represents how you think about it. We have the visualization. Sometimes you have to pretend in order to meet up to that next level. And the great part about meditation and visualization in developing who you are, you have to look around sometimes and discover what is greatness because you may not know. So, for example, if you want to be successful, you have who do you reference that to? What is your reference point? I would reference the point, back to Les Brown or Jack Canfield, or Tony Robinson, because as a speaker, who would I have as my idol? And if I had to use my imagination, what would Tony say or Les Brown? I think I was saying in a few shows ago when I go to do corporate speaking that I leave Jessie home. I leave Jessie in the room because they may not buy Jessie. So Les Brown has to show up. And again, this is really about, that self-image. I've studied and read a lot of different books and followed Les Brown, and he's a very sought after speaker. So I try to bring my model to that. I've had the great opportunity by doing that to speak at Nike, Raytheon, American Express, Coca-Cola. So I have, companies that I couldn't even think about that I would even fit in. But when I changed my mindset and I started to, emulate Les Brown and follow his strategies, it really elevated me to a whole nother level. Instead of just speaking to companies or with companies, then I found myself, at the top. Actually, I became a corporate educator for Duke CE or Duke University. They have a corporate training program. I became one of their corporate educators. And again, I'm traveling all over the world, having that opportunity to do something that if I had limited my belief, I would have never had that opportunity.
Well, now this goes into a subject. Sometimes people get kind of woo-woo or see this as woo-woo, but we're talking about manifestation. How did those ideas, because you spoke a lot. I hope everyone's doing what I'm doing. I got my notepad. I take notes every time we talk because there's so much goodness. And remember, everyone, as you watch, this is recorded. So, of course, you can go back and watch the replay. But that idea of constant space repetition goes back to you reviewing this material and actually utilizing it. However, I was asking, how much of that is manifestation? Because what you said there's visualization, you were reading, you're visualizing, you're seeing yourself as great as or greater than some of the people you look up to. And then the next thing you know, you're speaking to these top Fortune 500 companies, and you didn't have to put a lot of thought into the steps of getting there. But I think what you were saying is that you were able to recognize the opportunities as they presented themselves. Did I have that right? Did I say that right?
Well, it's really about your mindset. And you're right. When we think we draw to us what we think about most. And this is the
Mm,
reason why it's so important that be careful what you're thinking. And when you're talking
mm,
about manifesting, that's a natural part of who we are and what we do. And the sooner we realize that, we can attract more into our lives that we're looking for. So when we think about manifesting or reaching a certain level, then our mind is like a thermostat. It will go up to that temperature, and then it will cut off. So if you have a limited mindset, then you're going to have limited results. So you really have to bring your thermostat up by reading, by watching, by studying, and picture in your mind what it is. That's why vision board is so important in there. So what happens is that this energy that we all have energy, and when we no longer have this energy, then we're dead. I mean, so the energy that we have is called life. And if you meet someone, you like them or you don't like them, it's energy. We're always transferring energy back and forth, and that same energy can now connect. And because our mind, these 70,000 thoughts that we have every day, when we implement them into something very specific, then we begin to draw those things into our lives. So you can look around and you can ask yourself, where you are right now, what was my thinking, or what is my thinking, and see where it brings you. If you want that new home, okay, then you go get pictures and you go out and do tours. You start going into homes, looking at homes, starting to be a part of it. And the more that you start to do it, you'll find that the more that energy is drawn to you. And then being prepared for the opportunity. See, you
yes,
can
that
look at
that right there. Yeah, that
right.
right there. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go right ahead.
Yeah, being
I,
prepared for the opportunity. So you may have all the skill sets in the world, but do you recognize the opportunity when it presents itself? Because the law of attraction is working all the time, with you. And again, I speak about law of attraction because I've done a lot of study about it. Actually, written a book about it. It's on Amazon. Law of Attraction:
why
Your
am I not
Thoughts Become.
surprised?
I write a book on everything. you know the law of, in fact what we're going to well in just a moment we'll come to that, but that's what we're talking about. You study and make yourself knowledgeable.
Right.
So the mind is very powerful. When you begin to realize that, then you, through meditation, through visualization and mental rehearsal, so, you mental rehearse your success. Who are you? How do you, what's your thinking? If you're thinking negative, you're rehearsing, you're doing mental rehearsal. And if you're drawing negativity into your life, that's just an outcome from that. Or if you're doing mental and positive rehearsal, then, that's what you're drawing into your life.
Well, I think that's a really great point, because one of the things that I came to in this study and everything that we explore in our conversations is many people don't even realize the level of stress that they're carrying by being used to the negative self-talk. They become used to it, and it's what it is day to day. But the level of stress that is sustained stress over a period of time, the effects that it's having, not just not in being ready to receive or to see your opportunities, but just on your, even just your physical health and just your relationships. Everything is strained, and a lot of times I think people don't even realize the level of strain and stress that they're living under. Would you agree with that? What would you say about that?
Well, yeah, we a lot of times that stress can be so overbearing that you cannot see over it. And because just like in a relationship, you got a person that is the dominant person in relationship, and if they're giving you negativity, then what happens, the more negativity, you begin to shut down. So that negativity robs you from wanting to move forward. I really, I've seen relationships where, the husband or the wife are that dominant part. They're not giving anything constructive, and they're not giving anything positive. Everything that person is doing is wrong. You didn't do it right, and it begins to steal. I call it stealing. They're a thief. They're
Yeah,
stealing
yeah.
that person every time they talk to them, what they could do. And it robs their self-confidence unless they can find a way to build their confidence up. If they stay in that relationship, then they're going to be there. That's where they will be. So they
He's
have
stuck.
to, yeah, they're stuck, and they have to realize through studying and empowering themselves, sometimes you just have to leave relationships. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, it can be challenging, but this speaks to the very first point, which is because it's ruining your self-image.
right, right. I
Right.
believe until death do us part, but you know, you know,
There is the but. Yeah, there is
there's
the
the
but.
but. No, I'm sorry, I'm not able to do that. You're a goner. you know,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and that's what we have to realize because that you will lose who you are, and you will lose who you are, and that's the reason why it's so important that you associate yourself with positive things, and that you associate yourself with positive people. So again,
Right.
when speaking of that, we're going to start this each week. Again, back 10 years, well, back it was actually 16 years ago. 16 years ago, I actually wrote the book. So up on your screen now, it's called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life Success Guide, Unlock Your Potential, and take charge of your life, and create your own future. So
Wonderful.
this was what, now 16 years ago I wrote this book, but that's
Yeah,
where I
yeah.
was at that particular time. I was studying, and so as I'm studying, I'm writing notes, and these notes they turned into it turned into a book. So you can actually go to Lulu up, and I'm going to bring it up. I think we have this up here, or you can just Google it online. It'll tell you where you can go and get the book. But yeah, this is one of the books that I wrote just on this subject. Change your mind, change your life. You have to make a change, and when you make a change, it's coming across the screen now. So if you want to get a
Yeah.
copy, you can type in the link and go into your search. This link is going to take you over to Lulu, and you can still get the book there. But again, I wrote this book
Great.
16
16
years
years ago.
16 years ago. So I didn't start thinking the way that I think. So I've been thinking this way for a very long period of time. And so
Yeah.
as I'm, studying these things, you begin to write. So as I began to write this down, this became a very powerful book. I was doing seminars for the Silver Life System. So this is one of the books that I used in my course. And, just the title itself. And that's what you have to do. Change your mind, change your life. So when you change your
Yeah.
mind, then guess what? Your life will change.
Well, I mean, I think
So
that's a great key that you share right there. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead,
no,
sir.
you go ahead.
No, you know, the idea is sometimes confused that if you're busier, if you start doing a lot of things, that equates to moving forward. And that's not necessarily always the case. In fact, I've heard it's quite the opposite, that when people are really making progress, because there's an alignment in their mental self-image and in their thinking, that their actions are actually more efficient, where they're not necessarily doing a whole bunch of things and appearing to be making progress versus actually making progress. And I love the book, the idea of the book, because it gets right, even just the title, Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. We need to, there's an order to how we do things. If you're externally cleaning and straightening up and tidying up, and then you say, okay, I did it, and then in a week's time you're right back in a mess and chaos, well, that's because you haven't changed this. And a lot of times I think people go to the external versus having the alignment of the internal go on first, that cleanse that we talked about. And of course, I always go back to your other book, The Journeyman, the journaling, where you can let it out, where you can start cleaning internally first, and then let the mirror be your environment. And I think that's a big key for the audience today, with along with what you're sharing in the idea of changing your mind. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, and a good question to ask yourself is, what version of me am I operating from right now? So again, what do you think of yourself? Who are you? Who are you? What that's what you have to do, because if not, find yourself just, just doing stuff. Who are you? What is the makeup of you? What are the things that go into you? What are the things that go into your relationship? What is true happiness for you? Some people rather die than to be happy. So, you have to ask yourself that question. So I think that is a very good question for you to jot down and ask yourself, what version of me am I operating from? And when you get to that answer, and again, you just write everything you can think about of where you are now, then what is the opposite side of that would make you better? What would I have to do? Would I have to go back to school? Will I have to learn something? Will I have to take up a new trade? What is it? What is it that I want? Because if you don't have any goals set, then you find yourself wandering around in the universe and there's nothing happening in your life.
Right, right. Well, I mean, it goes back to the idea that you're really moving from an identity and being clear about who you are. That question, who am I? It's a very simple question, but it can be a very complicated question depending on one's self-image. And I was speaking about it when we cut out positive self-image psychology, that ability to shift your thoughts on how you define yourself and put that into action, because you're not gonna outwork, you're not gonna produce anything more than your self-image. That's the limit of a lot of us, mostly. And I'll say everyone, really. What's the difference? And this is something I always thought about. This is a great question. What's the difference between two people grew up in the same environment, around the same people, and one is ultra successful and one is not? They got the same environment. They might even be twins. They might even have the same parents. But then one is going one path and one's going another. And it goes back to this whole idea of your identity.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's true, because even though they may be twins and they share the same genes and all that, but it got about mindset. Really about mindset. What are they thinking? And this is really the place that you have to start working. And we talk a lot about mindset, but because I'm not able to fix the outer you, I'm not able to fix. I'm not able to fix you at all. I can give you information that will help you fix yourself, but it's going to pretty much come back to the same thing. Number one, You have to get on the inside of you. How do you do that? You do it by using meditation. You use it in meditation means to think of sitting in that quiet place and thinking. Listen, we have over 70,000 thoughts. Everybody fantasizes on something, but what are you fantasizing on? Hatred, love, money, lust. What are you fantasizing on? Go and get the donut. What are you fantasizing on? We all, everybody does. Your mind is never blank. That's why you have 70,000 thoughts going on. And the question is, what are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that cuts right to it. So for the person who's watching this, hearing this, and they're excited about what they're hearing, they say, yes, this is, I can see this. I'm always the one that says, okay, well, how am I going to do that? What are my practical steps to doing this, right? And now I'm into subtraction, really, because a lot of times you add, and you're adding to the chaos. And I think what you said was meditation, because what meditation does, it gives you a moment to get still and to get quiet so you can hear that higher part of yourself, connect with something greater than yourself, whatever you want to call it. Everyone calls it something different. But I guess my thought is, hey, begin with your words, begin with what we spoke about, the words you're speaking, the thoughts you're thinking as you're sharing it, because you got to think before you speak. But then verbalizing it, I talk to myself. I don't care if my family comes through or if anyone else comes through, they'll see me in the mirror. I'm having a good conversation. I'm loving on me and telling me how wonderful I am. Because if you won't say it to yourself, why would you expect someone else to ever say it, right? So it needs to start with yourself. But you can start with something as simple as that. Making a nice, not nice, but making a positive statement to yourself in the mirror is just one thing. My thought is choose one thing and do that, because you can't say you're going to do 10 things if you can't even do the one. What's your thought on a strategy, a practical application strategy?
Pen and paper, write it down. Or, research, find a hero, find someone that's already successful, or someone, and follow that. We the kids, they follow all the basketball players. Everybody wants to be a basketball player, a football player. Why? Those people are visible. They're out there. They're living this beautiful life, and you'd like to live this beautiful life. Okay, then but you may not be a good basketball player, so that would be a problem. But there are other good qualities about that person. So sharpen your vision. I know when I was running my martial arts school, and I brought new people in, then they had to go out and find a home that they would love to own. I would send them out. Okay, go to open houses, and I want you to look at homes, but I don't want you to look at nothing under $150,000. Okay, so you can look at you can look at $1 million home. It's fine. But you cannot look at anything under $150,000, because I'm trying to elevate them. Because if I can get them to visualize and see themselves living in that home, then they will come to work and begin to work towards that. If not, then like I said, I'm gonna probably fire them anyway. Because they're not doing what I need to have done. Because I know
that's that alignment piece, right?
Right. Because if I'm paying them enough income that they're able to live in 100, that was back then. Now I would say you look at a $300,000 home or $400,000 home, and I want you to have it. I want you to live in it, because if I'm paying you that enough money for you to be able to afford to do that, then you're helping me cross over to my $1 million home.
Right. Absolutely.
So again,
it's a win-win.
So that is the connection. Having people, but I've got to visualize my team is strong enough that, because number one, I want to see them succeed, because if they're succeeding, then I'm succeeding. So you have to make that connection, and you have to help people that's going to be in your sphere to help them to be able to see success, help them to be able to create a vision. Because a lot of times I would have guys and ladies, they never thought about owning a home. And I send them out there and they go out and they start looking at all these homes and everything. Then they get that inspiration because they're looking at, beautiful homes. And so it begins to now catch their eye. And now they decide they want to have that home. And now we can start the manifesting process, because you just want it, and that want turns into a desire. And so when that desire comes, now, you're now working towards that.
Well, I mean, that's I think, and I know we're winding down the show. However, I think that is so great that you had the foresight to say, I don't, in building a team, it's not just me building a vision and doing these things, but actually pouring into your team because you want them to win just as much as you want you to win. Because I think sometimes when someone has had a challenge with having proper mindset around money and so forth, that broke mentality can be a poison. And it becomes like they think that if you're in a good position that you're selfish. When in reality, the most successful people I know are the biggest givers. They give first, and like on levels that I had no clue about. I mean, I've been in some rooms here lately, and I hear the giving and what they want for the people that they're working with, and how that's first and foremost. So I think a lot of times when you haven't been in those upper levels of around association that operates at a higher level, the connection between the laws of the universe, going back to one of our conversations, which is there's laws that everything operates under. It's as simple as this. If you want the fireplace to give you heat, you can't sit in front of an empty fireplace and just demand heat. You got to put in wood first. You got to put the wood in, then you can get the heat back. And so I think that is a big key, what you just shared, of wanting for others and helping them get what they want. And I think it was Jim Rohn or one of those classic speakers who said that if you help everyone else get what they want, you'll always have what you want.
Right. And that's the first rule about sales. It's not selling. It's helping people to get happily involved with what they want. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it like that, it's no longer selling.
Right. It's a reframe. That's a great reframe. Yeah.
Right. And that's what you have to do, a lot of reframing. You got to put things, it's really easy to get stuck into a negative place. And maybe you've been in negative places before, and someone says something or does something, and it makes you feel that negativity of past relationships. And that will put you right back. You're doing good. You got this new relationship, and all of a sudden that person says something or does something that reminds you of a past relationship. And then you go right back, and every time you look at that person, you no longer see that person, you see the other person. And it begins to change, but it changes internally. So you just have to be aware of that emotional part. And again, you got to change on the inside. You got to learn how to get on the inside. We're getting ready to start a new course on meditation. So again, you can go online and get some of my books on meditation. But the Power to Live Your Vision was a part of our meditation program, the Zen Mind Body Meditation. So you got to meditate day and night on the you. You have to commit to you and not just let you happen. You have to be a participant and believe in yourself, believe in what you're doing. And yes, It is more difficult than me just saying it and telling you to do it. But that's the reason why the power of journaling. Start to write about you. What are the things you want to have? What are the things you want to do? Even if you're not at that place, I am great. I respect myself. I respect others. I am blessed. I'm highly favored. Start having a conversation with you. And so when you have that conversation with you, now that is an empowerment statement.
Yes, sir. Wow. What a powerful show today. I don't think I don't even want to add anything more to that. That was great. I took lots of notes here to apply. And I think that's another key. I mean, it's just choose one or two things that resonate with you and just start. Don't just sit back and think about starting, or leave it in your headspace, is what I heard you saying. Basically, it's actually taking a small action, when those small actions will lead to the next step and the next step, and the journey begins. So thank you for that. That was awesome.
And write it down. There's too many things happening in your head. Write down so you can stay focused. That's why journaling is so empowering, because you write it down, you can look at it, you can move on it, keep those notes, and those notes turn into books, So that's all I do. So when
the power of publishing, if you really, because I think I didn't even think about it until we began our conversations, and you're in the publishing, in the mix. And as we go to meetings and talk, I thought about it and I said, man, everyone on the planet has been affected by publishing in one form or fashion or another, all day, every day, historically, even the figures in the past, whatever expression of the publishing, there was a level of publishing that was going on, So, it's a very powerful way. And like you said, I appreciate that, writing something every day, and just letting it out. That's awesome. So I think after we finish this, I'm going to do a quick journaling session before I jump on to the next thing. You've inspired me.
Right. And what you have to realize, what if the Bible had not been written, or the authors of the various chapters in the Bible, they didn't write, they were inspired to write. They were spiritually inspired. So that same God that inspired them to write can inspire you to write. So
maybe we can have a conversation on overcoming the resistance, because I think people are inspired often, and there is that voice. We discussed this before, and that voice is speaking up and encouraging people to take action, but sometimes people block it out and smother it. And so maybe next week we can talk about overcoming resistance. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good, because this is the greatest time ever to actually be in the publishing business, or write a book, or whether it's a compilation book, or something small, children's book, or whatever. And that's what this podcast is built on, is the power to live your vision. Like I said, I've written 63 books now, and right now I've got 4 more that's going to be released before the end of this year. So I will hit 70 books this year that I've actually personally written. And, as we bring the other book back up here on the screen that we're promoting today, and, this book here, change your mind, change your life success guide, I wrote back in 2010. So this was, 16. I had no thoughts of what value this would have in the future, but his book is still up, it's still selling. So check out the book. A lot of great stuff in there. There's exercises in there for you to follow and things for you to do. But you may write something now, but you may not need it until 10 or 15 years in the future.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
I wrote that. I wrote this when I was in this other season of my life. And now I'm in a new season. And I was thinking yesterday, I'm going, man, I've got all this stuff. I've, 60 books. there should be something for somebody, right? So
right, you just go in the archives at that point.
Right. So that's why, last week we did the thing on time management. So I've got books on time management, so we just wanted to share it with everyone to let you know there are resources and there are ways that you can now empower yourself. So check out this book, this screaming across the screen there. You can also Google the name of it and Google my name. It is available on Lulu. I see that is not available. It's up on Amazon and it's up on Barnes & Noble, but it says it's not available. I'm going to check in that, but it is available on Lulu, or just contact me and I can send you a copy. Again, that's my cell number there, or info@elitepublications.org. Any last things, words from you, Coach?
No, sir. I'm just very thankful to yourself and to the audience for everyone who's plugging in. And it's great to be on this journey, and look forward to the next one.
All right, sir. And everyone, remember, the power to live your vision belongs to you. Don't let anyone else steal that. It's your life. We die for ourselves. So the life that you have is the life that you desire. And if you're not getting what you want from that, then take a moment and define what it is your life is perceived it should be. Remember, there's a blessing for you. We all have a purpose. And if sooner you discover your purpose, the faster and easier you'll be able to move your life forward. Or if you're in that great place, remember, reach down and grab someone, help someone else up, share your knowledge, your experience, and that's the way we make the world a better place. Everyone, be blessed. We'll see you next week.